Hello and welcome to the Small Bow Podcast. We're a podcast trying to expand the definition of recovery, where we tackle issues. No, we don't tackle anything. We talk to interesting people about issues related to sobriety, mental illness, love, sex, food, debt, loneliness, depression, regrets, and today, fame and being a super young, sober person adjacent to fame. And super specific, raw-ass recovery. Our guest today is Amanda de Cadenet. Yes, I am wearing the same shirt again. I wear this shirt 5 times a week. What can I say? I love this shirt. Paris Review, it's okay. Little above me. Very smart people read this magazine, but I'm only trying to come off as smart. Our guest today is Amanda de Cadenet, who is a writer, podcast host, interviewer. She hosts this wonderful show called The Conversation. I think anyone who's been in recovery for a long time will feel very connected to this one. I mean, this is very similar to the Trey Anastasio conversation I had like a few months ago, where I think I said to him, oh, we're totally going to geek out about recovery. Similar sort of thing with Amanda. And it's funny because I never met her before, right? But it sounds like we had met before. And that's just because the way she does her program is very similar to mine. There's that shorthand there. I think I call it whale sonar, which recovery people kind of share. And, sometimes it sounds a little culty, to be honest. I think we acknowledge that. And we were both okay with being part of a 12-step cult. I'm actually not pro-cult, but I hope you'll realize that. I don't want anybody coming after me about cults. But I was super impressed with Amanda, and I want to have her back on the show as many times as possible because I found her really inspiring, and I liked what she had to say. I think you will too. So if you're ready to get spiritualized, here's Amanda de Cadenet.
Sleep with me, you know you should. Trust me, child, it feels so good. Bleed with me, and you'll see that I am all the things you need.
The essay you wrote for Nylon about you and Corny at the Chateau, that was beautiful.
Oh,
essay.
thank you.
That was really well done.
Thank you so much.
Because I was like, because it's so hard to write about recovery without falling into tropes. Right?
Oh my God, I know.
But you did it.
Thank you.
And it's like, but you also had this very lovely way of kind of just like, last worst night. I threw some sort of phrasing there.
Yeah, right.
Was the best worst night or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many times where something looks a certain way on the outside.
Yeah.
And then you're having a completely different experience, on the inside. And that's so often the case with people who get sober. People in their lives are like, but you don't seem so bad. It's like, yeah, what you're seeing is not what I'm experiencing.
But I mean, you kind of mentioned the sadness from that night, but I mean, not certain about it, but I mean, how certain were you in terms of just like how you were feeling at that moment in time?
I couldn't have been feeling worse.
Really?
Yeah, it was
Did
bad.
you recognize it at the time though? Or is it just...
No, in hindsight, I mean, I could have gotten worse. I might have been dead.
Sure.
Like the next step of sliding downwards in life, I could have been dead. So that was the period of time where I was ODing and not really knowing that's what was happening. I was calling it like blacking out, but it was actually ODing and not remembering and coming to, not knowing where I was. Right. And I don't know what would have happened if I had not have gotten sober at that time. Yeah. In fact, a guy that I was dating at that time recently died from drugs. Okay. Like a month ago. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, that could have been me. You know what I mean? Whether it was then or now, if I hadn't have gotten sober.
The person that died, were you still in touch with him at all? Or like,
no.
Yeah.
No, I read it in some online or something. I was like, wow, that's the guy that I went to his house that night.
The 5 a.m. That was the 5
a.m. situation. Really? Huh. And he died from, I think it was, fentanyl.
Yeah. It's everywhere now.
I mean.
It's in weed. It's like so scary.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really, really is. I mean, if I had have been, I'm grateful that when I was using, it wasn't as high. It was high risk, but not high risk in the way it is today. Like you can smoke weed and die because it's laced with fentanyl.
Exactly. Which is the order that you like to, like, you know, podcaster, model? What do you want? Which order do you want here?
No, I don't. I haven't been a model since I'm like 15.
So no model.
No, that's interesting. No, never. I haven't been. I modeled like for a very small amount of time when I was like 15 years old.
I mean, it's in your list of things. I mean,
well, from Chat GPT, maybe?
No, it's not. It's in the nylon story. It's like, you know, advocate, photographer. Like, you know, it's like a whole bunch of stuff.
Huh. Well, what am I? Yeah, I'm an interviewer. I guess I'd do it as a podcast now.
Okay.
I'm a photographer, and that's what I do.
Yeah. So you're a photographer.
I am. Photography as a career was 100% born out of my recovery.
Got it.
When I was 22 and I got sober, the first year of recovery, actually it was my second year of recovery. I was 24. It became very clear to me that I did not want to be a famous person and that I had been famous since I was 15 years old.
Sure.
14 actually.
Yeah.
And that was no longer something that I identified with.
Right.
And that I did not want my face to be what was telling the story. That I was really interested in storytelling, but I didn't want to be the vehicle for it anymore.
You know, that's what I guessed. It's exactly what yes.
Well, it's true.
Yeah.
And so
I was just like, I bet that just kind of gives like the control thing back where it's just like,
that's exactly right. Yeah.
Fucking amazing.
Yeah. I was really tired of other people's vision of me being what was communicated.
And you could be more thoughtful and basically kind of just like see people the way you want to be seen.
Yeah. And so I started photographing myself.
Yeah.
And so my manager at the time was like, look, you take photos. Why don't you do your own self-portraits for the next project you have coming out?
Right.
So I started doing that. And people saw my photos and they were like, oh, they're kind of good. And then I started shooting my friends.
Right.
And I would shoot them in ways as a female perspective that wasn't the male gaze.
Sure.
And so they felt they were more authentic. They were more true to who they were.
Yeah.
And that really started my career as a photographer. And also, I didn't need other people to do it.
Yeah.
I did not need 10 people at a network or a company to say yes. I could just pick up my camera and it was just me and my camera. And it was the most pure experience for me, having grown up on TV and in media. It was so freeing and it was 100% born out of my recovery.
Right.
And to be able to tell stories from behind the camera was so empowering for me because I had grown up with people just thinking I was just like, you know, hot. That was it. They didn't know that I had any other skill.
Right.
I didn't know I had any other skill. I had no clue. It was only when I got sober that I began and did inventories that I got to be like, oh, I'm all these other things too.
Right.
And I have a perspective and I have a point of view. And I remember how terrifying it was to identify as a photographer.
Yeah, right.
Like when people ask me like, what do you do? You know, and the first time I said I'm a photographer and the first time I went into a magazine to meet with the photo department was GQ.
Sure.
And I was on the cover at the time.
Yeah.
And people were confused, like, what is she doing in here?
I know.
And I went in with like, you know, a box of photographs that I had taken and like, can you guys give me a job as a photographer? And people couldn't understand why I was trading fame for being a photographer.
Yeah.
But it was like I was being chosen because of my skill and not the way I looked. And I needed that validation because I hadn't had it before.
Yeah.
So it was purely recovery. You know, and as a photographer, you know, I took about 10 years off from shooting professionally because I founded a company called Girl Gaze, which was to help other female identifying photographers to get jobs.
Right.
I raised money, I built a tech platform, and that was amazing to really help change the landscape for other female photographers. And I've actually just started shooting again. And it's so powerful for me to go back and connect with something that I love so much.
Yeah.
And weirdly, it's like starting at the beginning.
Sure. Yeah.
Which I don't like.
No.
But that's the way it is.
When I started writing as a sober person, it's a completely different process for me now.
Yeah, right.
In the sense that I'm just like, oh, I can be disciplined about this. I can learn how to get better at this and not be afraid of it. Because a lot of the stuff that I did, in my career was really just to cover up for the fact that I was afraid if I do the thing I actually want to do, I'd fail. Right.
Fear of failure. Yeah.
But I love failing. That's the thing. I just don't know how to win.
Right. Do you feel like that's changed for you?
No.
Oh,
I still grapple with that, but I'm working. I can see it, right? I can see that as like, I heard this phrase sometimes that someone said that like, it was a gambling addict. He's like, I'm not addicted to gambling. I'm addicted to losing.
Wow.
Right? Isn't that great?
Yeah, dude, it's deep. That's so deep.
But that's the thing that I think I struggle with, where it's just,
But you're aware of it. I mean, awareness is the first step of it, right?
I know. Yeah.
Uncover, discover, discard.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to talk about.
Is it really?
Yeah, it really is. It's the most important thing to me. So, the surefire way to get me to show up and go on someone else's podcast is to ask me to talk about recovery.
Nice.
Otherwise, I'm a bit like, okay.
Yeah, what are we going to talk about?
Like, But recovery, I'm happy to be of service and show up and participate in spreading the word.
Do you consider this service?
Definitely.
Really?
Yeah.
Should I consider it service? Because
yes, you're being of service. And what better opportunity than if you have a job where you can be of service? That's how I started the conversation. My interview series was, how can I best be of service?
It's interesting. You think of it that way too.
So whenever you don't want to show up for your job, just think, I'm doing service for the day.
I always want to show up though.
Okay, well,
I don't like the intros, obviously. Right, but I mean, this is like the part of the job that I dislike the most. But I think that we've decided that, me botching it is basically the best way to do it.
I think you should go with that personally. Yeah. Like, I'm not your producer, but if I was, I would be saying, let's go with the ones where you botch it.
Thank you.
But Jeff's a great producer. He's going to know what to do.
Sometimes he gives me directions that I'm like, man, you're making me.
That's okay. You just take what you want and leave the rest.
There you go. You're bringing it all back. Take what you want and leave. I'm going to talk into the camera. Take what you want and leave the rest is a saying that they have in the 12-step rooms, which basically means if you don't like God or any of the, language from like the 1930s, you can just leave it there and just come for the recovery. Come for other people is basically what I say.
And change the word God for higher power, spiritual belief, the universe, whatever works for you.
Sock in the dryer, sometimes I call it. Yeah.
Whatever, as long as it's not you.
That's what I was taught.
Same.
Yeah.
I think maybe we had some of the same teachers.
I mean, because I had problem with the prayer portion, but that was it. Like, who am I praying to? Not you. Especially, that was the...
Yeah, but the concept of like a higher power and what is that?
Right.
And how do you hand it over? How do you turn it over?
Yeah.
Is one of the hardest things for people to grasp in recovery. But not all recovery programs require that you have a higher power.
Right.
But in 12-step recovery, it's one of the hardest concepts for people to grasp.
Yeah. Are you in a lot of different programs?
I'm in multiple programs.
Triple win or quadruple win?
Triple.
I'm a triple winner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite at this point?
I mean, I love Al-Anon. Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
How do you navigate, the tradition of
11
of like, being public about and being anonymous at the level of press, radio, and film? I tend to talk about recovery
instead of
12-step.
Yeah, me too. But I always think that I was kind of outed publicly because I was such a fucking public drug addict and alcoholic that I'm like, okay, well, why wouldn't I talk about what I've used to basically not be
that?
Right.
Yeah.
And thinking that it's one part of what I do. I need a lot of stuff in order to kind of keep things upright. So I kind of treat it as like on the same level as therapy and my gratitude journal and all the other things that I do. But I do respect people that kind of stick to that.
I think I think the reason it's there is when you've got people who are public who say I'm in 12-step and then they go out and they start using, people go, oh yeah, 12-step really doesn't work because look at so-and-so.
I know.
Because they don't understand addiction.
Fucking Shia, man. I'm like so brokenhearted by that.
I know, right?
I'm like so upset by that.
And as alcoholics and addicts, it makes sense that some people relapse.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It is not easy. Yeah. It's not an easy path, and it is a every single day.
Right.
It's a commitment. And what I think people don't understand is that the reason you said in your intro, we're expanding the concept of recovery, is that addiction is a mindset. It's to do with our thinking. It's not to do with the substance. So we have an ailment with the way we think, the way we see the world. Mm. Whether we're using sex, drugs, alcohol, work, fame, attention, validation, shopping, people who have this addictive mentality can use any of those things. Yeah. So it's not surprising to me that, people relapse because it's hard to live with thinking like this.
Right. I've started kind of referring to a lot of my ism as add to cart, which is basically just when I kind of just sometimes I just need that hit of and I'm dabbling in the money program as well a little bit.
I hear that is great.
It kind of helps a lot of the other ones sort of even them out.
Interesting.
They've got the best saying, which I think is just half measures give you half.
Right.
Which I think is really...
It's so simple, isn't it?
It is.
It's really simple.
Yeah. And it transfers over to basically every part of life, I think.
It talks about, some of us are sicker than others and need outside help. I'm definitely one of those people who has a lot of trauma. And if you, listen to Gabor Mate, he'll talk about how he believes that trauma is underneath addiction.
Sure.
And I do tend to agree with that. Yeah. However, how we treat it is the question,
right?
And what I do know is that different things work for different people. And that's why when I talk about recovery, it's important that people understand that there are different ways for you to approach it.
Right.
What works for me might not work for someone else.
Yeah.
I can only talk about what works for me.
Right.
But it's kind of like, I need multiple things like you in order to keep my head straight.
Uh-huh. Yeah. When I did, medication helped a lot too.
Mm-hmm. It's helped me a lot as well.
Needed that part because I avoided it for so long for all the usual reasons. It's going to dull my creativity, whatever. And I just realized, especially when I, became a father and, was a husband and needed to be kind of accountable to other people as well. So I was just like, man, I can't get, there can't be any more 72-hour visits for me.
Right.
And my wife was basically just like, you gotta get meds. I can't do this.
Meds are something that there is still stigmatized, and I think more people should talk about it if they can.
I know.
And I understand why, but what was your journey with meds? Did you find something that worked for you right away, or was it a process?
I started with Abilify Seroquel. Mm-hmm. And Seroquel just, I think, was too fucking fun for me, to be honest with you.
Oh, interesting.
And Abilify gave me a lot of morning panic attacks.
Wow.
But in a very strange, specific way where I was like, I went to the emergency room twice because I thought I had a fish oil thing stuck in my throat.
Oh, amazing.
And,
wow.
I was convinced that I had poisoned my family by leaving the car on too long in the garage. It was just that sort of stuff I was waking up with. And I couldn't tell what was real and what was not.
Scary.
It felt real. You know?
And that's what's scary about being on the wrong meds.
Yeah, so I went off of Abilify, then it's been Lamictal, finding the right dose of that. Gabapentin has been huge for me. I took it right before the first episode because I was so kind of nervous about this. And then I have this thing called Zyprexa, which is
I've heard of that.
Which is basically kind of the, that's like the switch that basically shuts down everything so I can fall asleep and just not feel like I'm going to kill myself.
I'm pleased that you found a combination that worked for you.
Yeah. And then, sleep is still an issue for me. I still don't know when my bedtime is. I still don't know what good sleep is. I still sleep on the couch a lot because I feel like that's it. I still need to fall asleep. Even I wake up when I'm tired and I'll just like start watching a movie for no reason just because I feel like that's
that's not gonna help.
No, it doesn't. But I still feel that way in my because that was the thing that I realized too when I first got sober. Because I come out and they give me Librium and Trazodone.
That's a heavy sedatives.
And Librium was like the best sleep I've ever had in my life. And I'm like, but
because it knocks you out.
It knocks you out, but it's like you're on a cloud the whole time. And I loved that, but I realized that that was one of those things that I could love too much, and that's kind of on the cusp of, I don't know, are you abusing this? But I realized that I just didn't know how to sleep for my whole life. And then kind of, going back and then doing the EMDR, digging through the past.
Did EMDR help you?
Yeah.
Interesting. I've done a lot of EMDR and it has not helped me.
I used to have to do it and then I would feel physically ill afterwards.
Yeah, that's quite a common response.
And I would go to get a Thai massage afterwards to basically kind of
process it.
Yeah. And but it got me at least to a spot where I can say, okay, this is what I'm confronting. I call it like, you figure out what the scream behind the scream is kind of what I described it as. And as long as I had that knowledge, I could kind of just like find a way and navigate it.
So these are things you did when you were in an acute phase.
Like more year 1, year 2 sort of stuff, kind of getting your limbs back, figuring out just like, oh, why do I react this way?
The emotional regulation. Yeah, that's a big one for alcoholics and addicts. That's why we use in the first place, to manage our feelings.
Yeah, I thought I was just having fun. But
yeah,
and then you kind of look back.
Fun until it wasn't.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize. I made a kind of an amends last week, but it was more like a reconnection. But it was like a friend of mine who I'd lived with, kind of peak bad part of like, the downward slope. And, I stopped talking to him. Like there was a rupture in the friendship just because I thought he reminded me too much of my past that I didn't really want to look at right away. But when I emailed him, because he writes for Slate as well, and I would stare at our bylines and I'd be like, God, this person was so important to me and was, very like bore witness to basically kind of just like the most confusing and worst part of my life. And am I ready to have a conversation with him being this person now? And I did. And man, it was just like, oh, I miss this. This is a person I can actually trust.
That's great that you were reminded of that.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, that's the beauty of recovery is that there are relationships that we have an opportunity to mend. Not all of them.
Right.
But if it's appropriate.
Yeah.
A lot of relationships heal and then a lot of ones fall by the wayside because they're not for this stage of life.
No, I mean, I kind of talked about that there's like this real spiritual auditing of kind of your friendships. And like a lot of the people that I would talk to early on in early sobriety, I thought would be kind of a reconnection, but it turned out to be kind of like an exit interview. Like we called it, where it was just like, oh, I get that we're not
compatible now. Yeah. I mean, my friendships have changed over the years, depending on what I'm going through. I think there's like seasons for friendships.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, my dad died 3 years ago, and that was the most intense grief that I experienced. Right. And people who were not grief literate and did not know how to handle my grief just couldn't cope. And some people who I was really surprised, they just bailed. And then there was other people who came forward and said, "Oh no, I have a lot of experience with this, and you know, I can be available for you."
Right.
There was one woman in my home group whose wife was a death doula, who ended up like helping me and my family as my dad was passing.
Right.
And it's one of the things that I love about recovery is that, you know, there is somebody in the recovery community who has gone through what you're going through. And like, where else in the world do you get to share some, some of the hardest things that you're going through, and someone else will say, "Oh, you should speak to so-and-so." You know, the amount of strangers that I've called, like, "Hi, I'm Amanda. So-and-so gave me your number and said that you know how to deal with, children that have OCD." Or I'm just making that up. Sure. But like, are you available to speak? And they'll be like, "Yep, sure." Yeah. And you get on the phone and you learn from someone who has experience about something.
Right. Were you there with your father?
I was there the day before.
Was she a qualifier in any sort of way, or was that
in one of my programs? Yeah.
Got it.
I mean, yeah.
So was
my first dysfunctional love.
Yeah. No, because my father died 3 years ago,
and I
was there, but it was a real great moment because I recognized, because we had been combative like for years and off and on, and I know if I were still partying, there's no way I would be at his bedside.
Yeah.
I would leave that to my sister to take care of.
Yeah.
I would have gone to Belize or something and be like, "Yeah, this is tough for me." Or whatever.
Right.
But I was there, and it was, at the bell, like I saw it all. I called the nurse, and I was basically just like, "I think that's it."
One of the things that I learned early on in recovery is that I get to make a choice about what kind of daughter I want to be, despite however I feel like I was raised by my parents. What kind of mother do I want to be? What kind of daughter do I want to be? And that is not dictated by how other people treat me. It's dictated by how do I want to show up, because I have awareness, and I have choices, and I have tools. And so I made a decision early on about how I was going to show up.
Right.
And that annoyed my dad at times. But that's okay. He was entitled to have his feelings. It was important to me that I show up in the way that I felt good about.
Did he support your recovery?
Oh, yeah. Big time. Big time. I mean, I got clean at 22.
Yeah.
So I've spent I've spent my entire adult life in recovery.
Right.
I got into Al-Anon when I was 22 because I had a boyfriend who was a junkie and kept ODing. And then I got sober at that time too, because he was going to meetings and I would go with him, like the good Al-Anon that I am. And I would hear stories about people describing how I felt.
Yeah.
Not the circumstances were different. People, places, and things were different, but the feelings were the same. And it was such a relief to think, to realize, oh, there's people who feel the way I feel. Alcoholics and addicts feel very, very strongly. We are intense fucking motherfuckers.
I noticed, and this is a pleasant surprise too, that after my father died, that I can still, because he had dementia, and I was really mad at when he started to lose his mind, and I started to do like ACA, and I'm like, well, how am I going to the guy that I'm fighting with and like who's my best friend and my mortal enemy is like disintegrating before my eyes. And I'm like, well, this isn't part of, how am I ever going to get and I'm thinking of my amends, but it's really like reparations was what I was looking for. I was looking for an acknowledgement of the pain.
Right.
But I've noticed, and this is kind of a wonderful surprise, is that I can still, my love for him can still grow even though he's not here. I can still reparent with my kids. I can still reparent myself. I can do all that. And it's nice to kind of lay all of that stuff down. I can still find peace in my own way through that program.
Have you found good ACA meetings?
I go to a men's meeting at Friday morning. in Beechwood Canyon that really altered my whole entire
I'm
life.
desperate to find a good one.
The men's meeting in particular, and I really liked when you did that segment about like masculinity when you're having conversations with men too, because I think you're asking very good questions.
Thank you.
And I also I didn't know that I was so afraid of men until I started going to that meeting. Like I thought a lot of, my interpersonal relationships were because, I was a bad boyfriend for X amount of time. And the first time I went in this room that I go to, it's like 50 dudes, some of them recognizable, but like hands up every single time.
Yeah.
Everybody's just like these wonderful shares. Basket overflowing, like $60 over, like all the things like that. And I was just like, man, this was this thing that I've been seeking out.
God, I have that with two of my recovery groups where I'm so held by the women in those rooms, and they are a huge part of my daily life.
Yeah.
Right. I have a text thread with both of those recovery groups. Right. And every single day we're reading literature that gets put into the chat by one of the members. And we're texting gratitude list every single day, gratitude and fear list. And that's how I start my day. Before I get on my phone and start looking at any other texts, I read that material. I read those daily readers. And those groups are the foundation of my recovery. Right. And that's community is something that you don't realize you're going to get if you choose to get sober in recovery rooms. And that has been an integral part because, dire loneliness is part of my problem, and isolating.
Dire.
Yeah, dire loneliness, feeling like separate from.
When did you get in touch with the fact that it was dire? I mean, it's an interesting adjective.
My whole life.
But why dire?
Because it was debilitating, and I would just cry because I was so lonely.
Yeah, and you had no solution for it at that point.
I mean, my solution was to, sleep with men.
Act out, right? Yeah,
that was basically what the solution was as a not sober person. Yeah. And that was very detrimental. I mean, I've been like a serial monogamist.
Me too.
So I got married at 19 to my first husband. And I've pretty much been married ever since to different husband. But so the acting out in that department was it was a short period of time before I got sober. And it was because I was so lonely. Yeah. And to realize that my loneliness was so extreme that was the trade I would make. Yeah. Was really heartbreaking to realize when I got sober.
But did you say that out loud ever at that point, or was it just that feeling you couldn't really pinpoint then? I mean,
it's become more and more evident the longer I've been in recovery. Yeah.
No, me
and
too.
at different stages of my recovery. Yeah. Like right now I'm in a phase where my eldest daughter just got married. My other daughter just moved to New York. I've had a lot of change in my home environment. And it has reminded me, like, the loneliness is deafening. It is deafening. Right. I've been a mother since I'm 19 years old. Sure. So I have been taking care of kids and husbands since I'm 19. Right. Who am I without that identity of being a mother or a wife or who I am in the world? Who am I? Yeah. And what I can say is that that's why I'm so happy to show up and talk about recovery, because that is the thing that remains. That is the most significant thing about me. Yeah. If I'm not mothering or wifing or being a professional person, like, my recovery is what I wear and what I live by, no matter what. No matter what changes occur, the recovery is the consistent. And that has really helped my loneliness.
Do you consider your recovery people your friends, your actual friends, or are they kind of in a separate category? Do you categorize them that way?
I mean, I am in love with my recovery friends.
The reason why I ask is because, I'm been in Los Angeles 9 years now. When we started the family, I basically followed my wife here. But we've moved a lot since I've been here, and I'm an East Coast person. And I had this, and we're supposed to be moving again. And I was walking around neighborhood. We're in Beechwood Canyon, which is basically my favorite place to live in Los Angeles. But I realized that I'm still in search of a home that I've never lived in some ways.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's just this loneliness that I'm kind of coming to in the same way you did.
Yeah.
Because I basically grew up an only child, but I have a half sister who's 10 years older that we never lived with. And a lot of my serial monogamy was also just like that same sort of thing, where it's just like, well, if I can get someone to love me, then I'll feel safe.
Exactly.
Then I'll feel home, right?
Exactly. I relate to that a lot.
Yeah.
That is.
But then I would blow it up too.
Yeah. Well, because of your isms. Yeah. So maybe while you're treating the isms, you cannot blow it up,
Yeah.
Right. And actually get to the bottom of what it is.
Right.
Because that I know what you're talking about, where you say you're looking for a home that you've never lived in. Mm-hmm. And that home has to be us.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm realizing at this stage of my recovery, that I can't find my home in these other identities.
I know.
That I have outsourced my well-being to people, places, and things my whole life.
Yeah, sure.
And that is our culture, and that is our world that is encouraging us to outsource our well-being to him, her, that job, all the different ways to get validation and approval. And I think and I believe at this stage in my recovery that the solution and the home that I must find is within myself.
Yeah.
How do you do that on a practical level? I mean, I'm in the process of trying to discover that.
Sure.
That's a lot of the reparenting.
Yeah.
How would Amanda treat a recovery friend in a certain moment?
I know.
What would I say to them? What would I suggest? What would I offer? How can I be of service to them?
Right.
And why can't I give that to myself?
Yeah.
Because wherever I go, there I am.
Yeah. I know.
And that's the struggle, or the kind of task that's in front of me right now as a person in recovery who has had all of the outside stuff. Mm-hmm. From a very young age. I was married to him. I had that job. When I was 19 years old, I hosted a live late night talk show in the UK.
It's crazy.
I was married to John Taylor, who was in Duran Duran. We were this big public couple.
Sure.
We had a child. I was on TV. We were a big tabloid, husband and wife.
Right.
And I was desperately unhappy. And so that was my first exposure to having all the outside stuff.
Yeah.
And it not fixing me. And I've had it multiple times in my life.
Different versions.
Yeah. And it hasn't fixed that ache.
Okay.
And so I must look at, why does that outside stuff not fill the God-sized hole?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting way of looking at it, in the sense that just like, okay, well, I'm just at this step where I can recognize the ache, and now I have this program where I can kind of can fix the ache if I do it continuously.
I mean, here's another thing that I've discovered in the last year of my recovery, that you can't know how deep the ache is until the things that provide safety for you are removed.
Yeah.
You can't know.
I know.
Because those identities are masking part of the trauma that is invisible to us until those pieces are removed.
Sure. You a big Pima person?
I love her. I think she's wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, I reread her books
all the time.
I keep coming back to
when things fall apart. Yeah,
come on. It is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I just reread it recently because shit was falling apart again, and I was like, all right, I need to anchor in to some wisdom from human children.
Yeah.
So, I think it's an ongoing process.
Right.
And I think, thank God we've got outside support.
No, I mean, that's the part that I was like, okay, where would I put this if I didn't have all this stuff? And then I just picked the part of my body where I'm just like, oh, would it go here? Probably up here.
Right.
And then I'd probably end my marriage.
Right.
I would be like, oh, well, I have to go someplace else.
Right.
This is a complete tear down job. This isn't an internal thing. Right. And, I always think about that is just what has been the opportunity to stay put, but also knowing that even this far along, I'm still going to feel that emptiness, and I'm still going to feel that kind of just desire to basically, like I said, add to cart or do a geographic
totally.
and things like that.
Yeah.
And as long as I'm aware of that now, that's actually all you get a lot of the time.
Yeah. And I mean, we bring that stuff to our community. That's not stuff that we need to take to our partners all the time.
Yes.
Like, they don't need to know about all that stuff,
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what we've got people in our communities to help us process stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we bring the problems to the community and we bring the solutions to our life.
Sure.
And that's what I try to do.
Do you ever feel like the 12-step is kind of culty?
I don't care if it's a cult. I'm happy to be a part of it.
That's funny.
Thrilled. I don't care.
I mean,
best cult I've ever been a part of.
Well, that's the thing. And I always kind of go back to it where I'm just like, oh, I watched like The Vow on HBO and I'm like, oh, well, it's kind of like AA a little bit. And
people like with my two like recovery groups, like we are a motley bunch.
Sure.
And sometimes people will see us out in public because someone will have, like an event going on, or they'll have something that like the group goes to celebrate in public. And people are like, how are all, like, what are these women? There's like a group because we're all different ages, all different jobs, and people are like, how do these people know each other? Like, what's the common thread? And if ever you see a group of like motley bunch of women at some public thing, it's like, they're probably in recovery.
I mean, the meeting that I go to on Friday, like, it's in Beechwood Canyon. And then my wife used to drive past it all the time before I started going there. And she would call it like the sexy men's meeting because like they would disperse like at 9 o'clock and everybody's fellowshipping outside. And that's just like my default for it. It's just like the sexy men's meeting. Yeah.
That's like, we're a motley bunch.
Right.
But like, I love alcoholics. I love
the shorthand is nice where you can just like kind of just pick up wherever.
And it's such a great touch point to have, like out in the wild.
Right.
It's like, just because someone's in recovery, you absolutely know there's a level that you can meet on.
That's right. Yeah. It's weird that way, where it's just like, oh, you can just like talk about very, very personal things that sometimes you wouldn't share with other people. But there's that whale sonar that exists. That
people will say to me, like, your ability to express your vulnerability is, they're like amazed by it.
Right.
And like, even when you said to me, when we sat down and you said like, oh, your interview with Lady Gaga, like, how do you get that level of intimacy?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I share that level of intimacy.
And I was hoping that was their answer, right? I mean, because I can feel that too, right? Because part of me, because I was a pretty good reporter, right? And I have that ability to kind of just, dig something out of people, but I don't necessarily want to do that now. And I feel like it's just going to take a little bit longer to kind of lock in with someone. But if you lock in with someone on this level, it's a much better episode, right? For the people who need it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think, the principles of, of peer-to-peer conversation is something that I rely on, and I don't expect people to, to be vulnerable with me unless I'm willing to be vulnerable. Sure. I mean, it depends if I'm interviewing Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton. I temper what I share, although having, like Hillary Clinton said, like, please don't ask me about sex. Because sometimes, I'm like, I'm not going to do that, because sometimes, you have to know your audience, right? But like,
who you're interviewing too. And it's like, I mean, so when do you, I mean, did you want to ask Hillary Clinton about sex?
In the TV version of the conversation, I would ask everyone what their favorite sex position was. And, and her team was like, you can ask her anything other than like that. And I said, I would never ask her that.
You tell me a little bit, because I think the first time you actually emailed me was when I interviewed Phil Pavel from Chateau Marmont, right? You reached out to me because I did this interview with Phil, and I became very close with Phil when I was at Chateau, because I just thought he was like this very special man.
Yeah, he is.
Who took care of me in a way that I was seeking, right? And I found that relationship that I had with certain people where I'm just like, oh, here's someone who was looking out for me in a way that I didn't expect.
So nice when that happens, isn't it?
It's great.
Gosh.
Yeah. No. And I was like a real menace to him at that time too, but he was always there to kind of lift me up. But, you had this experience where it's just like, oh, you get to see up close a lot of kind of just very iconic moments and people and interact with them during this period of time. I mean, do you grasp that now and look back at that fondly, or do you feel like you would have handled it differently had you been, because you still got sober pretty early.
Yeah,
but
I did.
Do you think you could have participated in it differently had you just been more present, I guess?
I think because I got sober so young, I mean, maybe between the ages of, like, I was drunk on my TV show in the UK.
Really?
I would be drunk a lot. I mean, how, as a 17-year-old girl, do you host live with no delay, late night TV that millions of people are watching? And I had never done that before. Like the fear, of being live on TV and getting a countdown in your ear.
Right.
And you're on, like that was so terrifying. I just learned to, have a drink and just like do it, So, yeah. I mean, I in hindsight, like wish I had been sober during that to really have that experience, but I don't think I would have been capable of it.
Sure.
And I think that I got sober so young that many of the, extraordinary life experiences that I've been present for.
Yeah. Do you think that fear, do you remember what that fear felt like? Is that a common fear, or is that just like the moment? Like when you do your fear list and gratitude list, because I do that too. I do my fears first.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I do mine second.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because that's just how I've always done it.
Okay. I take the fear because I want to neutralize it with the gratitude list.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to think about that. Yeah. Fear is a huge motivator. I still experience it related to specific things intensely. And I have to.
In career-wise or job-wise, or just every single aspect of your life?
Every aspect of my life. What I do find, and I talk about this with my friends in recovery, is, and maybe you find this too, that like when you're in recovery, you're playing the game of life with a certain deck of cards that involves integrity, authenticity, honesty, rigorous honesty and compassion, and the things that we are taught to live by in order to stay sober, right? There's a certain kind of like code of ethics that we're encouraged to live by. And I find it difficult sometimes because the world is not operating by these code of ethics. And so are you playing the game of life with a deck of cards that like only a handful of other people are playing with? Right. And that I sometimes think like, is that a disadvantage? Because the world is extremely corrupt and unethical and dishonest, and everyone seems to be out for themselves. And I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live by that code of ethics. That's not who I am. And I've kind of come to the place of like, well, if that means I'm less employable or, if that means that there's less opportunity for me, like, so be it.
Sure.
Because I can't live that other way. What's
your relationship to shame?
I don't have a lot of it. I feel really blessed that I don't suffer from shame in the same way that a lot of other people I know do. I don't, no.
Do you think that had to do with just like being public at a very young age and kind of being used to that, kind of that
I think that there was a lot of shame that was put onto me as a public person starting at a young age. And because I got into recovery young, I learned what was real and what wasn't.
Yeah.
But I still have a hard time with when other people don't perceive me as how I think I am. You know,
how do you pick that up in people?
Well, because they might communicate that they perceive me to be a certain way.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have to do that like awful therapeutic tool of validating their experience.
Do you get angry about that? I mean, do you feel like you need to stick up for yourself?
A lot of the time, yes. But I have learned to adopt the philosophy of like, what you think of me is not my business.
Got it. Yeah.
And I have to, that's not like a spiritual bypass. Like I have to check and go like, check my behavior and go, is there any truth in this?
Right.
Even if it's like 1%.
I had an amazing recovery week last week, right? Where it so happened where I do like double meetings, double step work. And you know, I did exercises, meditated longer than I have in a while. And I also had kind of, you know, a lot of this stuff happening too, which is different and disorienting. And I find myself kind of, you know, reacting in ways where it's just like, oh, this is out of my control.
Right.
And I can only respond one way. But luckily, I had like this huge bucket of water to put out the fire the whole entire time. And I never did this trick, and I always hear people kind of like, you know, talking about throwing gratitude at it instead of basically kind of aggression.
It's hard.
But it worked. I was surprised.
Really?
I was super shocked. Yeah. Where it was just like, oh, well, instead of being aggro about this and thinking I'm going to stick up for myself, because I mean, the way I stick up for myself is to blow shit up.
Right.
And that has never worked historically with me. Like, I'd lose everything.
Yeah.
And then you're basically just like, well, take that.
Exactly.
Right? It's so dumb.
It is hard to have that level of consciousness.
Right.
It really is.
Yeah.
You know, it takes such discipline and diligence. And sometimes I just get fed the fuck up where I'm like, I just want to have a tantrum.
Yeah.
I just want to.
Do you still have tantrums?
Occasionally. But it's always a disaster when I do.
Email tantrums?
No. Because you don't want proof of it. You can't do it on you cannot do it on a Zoom. It could be recorded.
Zoom's bad
You
too.
cannot do it on an email or a text. You can't do it in a voice note. You have to do it face to face because then no one can record it.
Yeah. No, I had this
You got to protect the tantrum.
Well, I mean, as a person who went through the process of discovery where all my emails and all those things.
God.
It's a terrible, terrible thing.
What was the name of your website?
Gawker.
Oh, yeah, I remember Gawker.
Yeah.
And I remember that. I didn't know that was you, but I remember that whole thing.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, oh, dude.
No, man, it brought me this.
I know. That's the thing is like you hung in long enough to see what the gift was on the other side of that.
Right. And I had to let the stuff that I thought I needed to get back was the stuff I actually needed to let go of. And it took me 2.5 years to figure that out.
I mean, this is just goes to show how, you know, people can really change.
I know.
You know, miracles happen with just that first simple choice of choosing to get sober. If you hadn't have chosen to get sober or I hadn't have chosen to get sober, you know, nothing would have been possible. Like I truly think that the things that have happened in my life since I got sober there's no way they would have been possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
It just wouldn't have happened. That was the the foundation for everything. And it still is.
Yeah.
It still is. It's why I take it so seriously.
Right.
Because like without it, I have nothing.
I mean, I put the program first because I mean, that's the thing that allows me to stay put, basically.
Yeah. And that's, you know, that's like they always say, you know, anything you put before your recovery is going to go.
You're going to lose it.
You know, and God forbid you lose your recovery.
I know.
But if you do, you know, just go right back.
I know. That's the best part. You go back, you raise your hand, everybody claps for you.
You know, it's the only place where, you know, people tell the most fucked up stories and people laugh and...
No, I never got it before when I was like in early sobriety, and just like, you know, somebody will be like, it's like, and I went to the dentist today, and people are like, yeah. And I'm like, what a fucking bunch of things.
I know.
Like, I mean, that's
just
not
because
that
something
big
like going to the dentist is a big deal.
Made your bed. Good luck. Yeah. Congrats.
I know.
People losing their minds. Because
I know.
People, I think we did an amazing job here.
Good. I'm pleased you feel like that.
You don't feel that way?
Totally.
Okay. Don't lie.
No, I'm not lying.
All right.
But I totally.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you not believe me?
No.
Oh, well, you'll hear it and you'll know that I'm telling the truth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm so pleased you're doing this.
Thank you. I'm so glad you agreed to join.
Thanks for inviting me on and including me.
Absolutely. You're going to have to come back pretty much every quarter, I think.
All right, I'll come back and we'll hang and catch up on where we're both at.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Sleep